Where were you when you heard that Steve Irwin had tragically passed away? It's hard to believe it's been 18 years since the Crocodile Hunter received a fatal blow from not a huge croc, but a lowly stingray. But in many ways, it seems like he never left. Steve Irwin has had a ship, an asteroid, and even a species of snail named after him. And he's still the public face of Australia to millions around the globe. But while almost everybody knows of his TV shows, his guts, and his crocs, few know the truth about his life and his death. Many of the dark secrets that lie just outside of the camera's reach have been buried until now. So today, Steve's children are all grown up, bringing us long-lost truths about the Crocodile Hunter himself. So just how did Steve Irwin really die? What were this jovial celebrity's last words? How was his daughter tragically involved in his death? And did he really put his son's life at risk? Today we're going to answer these questions and more, but before we do, give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy it. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss a new video. So, crikey, let's throw another shrimp on the Barbie and have a go, you mug. In other words, let's go find out. What happened? Robert Irwin's story. Robert Irwin has been called the splitting image of his late father. He grew up as a miniature version of his dad, doing all the same things, performing on the family TV show, and working with some very crazy animals. He even had a cameo in Free Willy 2. It's not known whether he was allowed to wrestle the whale. And tragically, Robert was just 2 when his father passed away. But that hasn't stopped his father, or his ghost, from continuing to shape the course of his life. So what's the truth behind Steve and Robert's relationship? Did Steve Irwin really put his son Robert in danger? The incident. I'm sure you recall Michael Jackson's mental breakdown, in which the world-famous pop star was busted during a breakdown dangling his infant son over the balcony. The incident was tragic, but it was the logical conclusion of a very sad trajectory from a once beloved public figure. But did you know Steve Irwin too was once accused of a similar behavior? In 2004, Steve Irwin was doing a typical Steve Irwin activity, feeding a chicken carcass to a 12-foot saltwater croc named Murray, if you ever wanted to introduce yourself. There was just one catch. He happened to be carrying his 1-month-old son in his arms while he fed the ferocious beast, and almost instantly there was an uproar from the media, calling the act irresponsible, dangerous, and even child abuse. Now, Steve had a reputation for being a family-friendly guy with a good head on his shoulders. But was all this being put into question? Was the Crocodile Hunter not who he seemed? In response to the outrage, Steve and his wife apologized on national news. However, they did make some important clarifications, saying Steve was in complete control of that situation.
In front of that crocodile, I was in complete control.
Furthermore, saying Steve was actually much further away from the gator's jaws than the misleading camera angle would suggest. Many of the critics were satisfied, but of course not everybody. And the incident prompted the government to strengthen laws keeping kids out of croc enclosures. So, some good came from the Steve Irwin controversy. Now let's go check on that little boy today. Robert Irwin today. So how has Robert managed to deal with the loss of his father? Well, it's hard to kinda take a different path than your dad when you look in the mirror and you see him, as Robert Irwin continues to be a mirror image of Steve in many respects. He keeps the family business, the Australia Zoo, running, and while he's prioritized real-life animal work over international media stardom, he still has his own show on Australian Zoo TV. But Robert has also stepped out on his own. He is a well-respected nature photographer, a true Australian. He is the leading photography contributor to Crikey magazine. But Robert wasn't the only Irwin child. So what about Bindi? Bindi Irwin's story. Steve Irwin once described his daughter Bindi as the reason he was put on this earth. Like her brother, Bindi grew up living, learning, and working alongside Dad. She was even more of a TV star than her brother. She even had her own TV shows, programs like Bindi the Jungle Girl, in which she traveled through the rainforest and introduced viewers to wild animals. But today, Bindi is all grown up, but now new details are coming forth about her father's tragic demise. So just how was Bindi's show involved in the catastrophe? How did Steve Irwin die? What if I told you Steve wasn't even supposed to be out on the water that day? Sure, he was supposed to be shooting at the Great Barrier Reef for his new show, but the shoot was called off due to bad weather, and he and his cameraman were just bored, just sitting around the hotel room. But there was something motivating them too. Steve was always looking for clips for Bindi's show, Bindi the Jungle Girl. If not for the desire to just help his daughter out, Steve probably would have stayed home. But instead, he made the fateful decision to take a small boat out and do some snorkeling in shallow water. As we know, he would not make it back to shore. It was there in that shallow water with the camera rolling, where Steve was stung in the heart hundreds of times by a stingray. Fatal stingray attacks are actually exceptionally rare. Only 2 have been recorded in Australia since 1945. But the statistics couldn't do anything to help Steve. As he was rushed back to shore, with his cameraman valiantly trying to save his life, Steve calmly said, "I'm dying." He was in death as he was in life, calm, cool, and accepting. Because of the sudden circumstances, the footage of the fatal attack is the only footage we have of a fatal stingray attack. One copy was given to Steve's widow, and she destroyed the tape. Bindi Irwin today. Bindi today is 25 years old. Since her father passed, she's done her best to carry on his legacy, specifically working in conservation and education. She actually married her teenage sweetheart, who is a professional wakeboarder. She even competed and won on Dancing with the Stars. And in 2021, she gave birth to a daughter. We know Steve Irwin is very, very proud. I do have one more tale about Steve Irwin, if that's alright. It's exciting. It involves life and death, exotic locales, everything that made Steve's shows so appealing. But it's about a lot more than TV, a whole lot more. In 2003, Steve was filming a documentary off the coast of Mexico. He heard over the radio that 2 scuba divers were missing. Without a second thought, he immediately suspended all of their operations just to assist. His team's divers helped with the other rescue divers, and he patrolled his boat around to continue the search. On the second day of the search, one of the divers was found dead in the water, but rescuers found the other perched on a narrow rock ledge aside a cliff. Had Steve not stepped in, both divers would have probably been found dead. This story says a whole lot about who Steve Irwin really was. Sure, he could hunt people almost as well as crocodiles, but it is so much deeper than that. Steve Irwin was obviously very famous in his day. He earned his success through his determination, his charisma, and let's be honest, the way he said, "Crikey." But every time that his own desires conflicted with somebody else's, he immediately went out of his way to help them out. I think we could all stand to learn a lot from Steve. And no, I do not mean we need to go wrestling crocodiles, because Steve Irwin is proof that being successful and helping out the little guy, or snake or koala or whatever, they do not have to conflict. As Uncle Ben would say,
"With great power comes great responsibility."
Or as Steve might say, "With a heap of power comes a fair dinkum amount of responsibility." Steve Irwin, you, my friend, are missed. And if you miss Steve Irwin, if you miss watching his programs, get in the comments and tell us your thoughts. What show of his did you used to watch? Have you continued to watch his wife or son or daughter on TV? Is Steve Irwin the greatest animal wrangler there ever was? Or are you more of a Wild Kingdom fan? Get in the comments and tell us all things Steve Irwin. If you enjoyed today's video, please give it a thumbs up, it really helps. Subscribe to our channel and come back often so we can keep telling you